Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the YWCA's Stand Against Racism Community Conversation. We're back for another exciting week of discussion. I'm Jessica Gershenfeld, one of the case managers here at the YWCA, and I'm really excited to introduce our executive director. Before I do that, I'm going to go over a couple ground rules for those of you who have been a part of this series before. You kind of know what's going on and the flow of everything, but I'm going to still go over some ground rules and some new things that we're going to try for this week and moving forward. So we're going to try to only ask questions in the Q&A box instead of in the chat. We've had some trouble with kind of keeping track of both the Q&A and the chat questions. So keep all the questions in the Q&A so we can make sure that everyone's questions get reviewed and answered. We want everyone to listen actively and respect others while they're speaking. We want this to be productive, so keep that in mind throughout. We want to focus on ideas and refrain from any personal attacks. Again, we want it to be productive, so we want to kind of keep it nice and really gain knowledge throughout this session. The goal of this is not to agree on everything, but rather gain a deeper understanding of the topics that we're going to discuss. Be mindful of asking questions that have already been covered. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions, so we want to make sure we get to all of them and we're not repeating. And then lastly, we want you to speak from your own experience rather than kind of generalizing your statements. And if there's anything that you specifically would like to ask our speaker, Mr. Harran, about regarding a specific case, we lost Jay, a specific case or arrest, we just want you to be mindful that he can't really answer any specific questions on the air, but I think, I've talked to him and he's kind of open to talking off camera about any of those, concerns that anyone might have. So we lost Jay, and our great production assistant just ran downstairs to, try to get him back on. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but let me see. I know everybody can see Fred Harran, so I can just kind of, introduce him anyway, but I know G wants to kind of give a better introduction than I can give. Give me one sec. All right, so I'm still not sure what's happening, but I think I don't want to waste too much time. So I think, I will introduce our speaker, Fred Harran, the Director of Public Safety for Bensalem Police Department, or for Bensalem. And I'll just get into kind of the first introduction question, and then when G gets back on, he can do, move forward with his questions. So Fred, we want to kind of get from you an idea of your background and, why you got into law enforcement. What drew you to this kind of work?
Sure. So I've, as Jessica said, my name is Fred Harran. I've been here in Bensalem now for 33 years, going on my 34th year here in law enforcement. Not from Bensalem originally, although Bensalem is home now. Originally from Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in New York City when I left to go to college here in Pennsylvania. And I stayed. My folks had left. My dad retired. They left New York and retired. And kind of like Richard Gere in Officer and Gentleman, I had nowhere else to go. So I stayed in Pennsylvania. But what most people don't know, and with Jess and G, we had talked about it during the pre-meeting, was that I graduated with my degree in political science, but that's not what I went to college for. I was actually a theater major. Growing up in New York City, my mom had taken me to Broadway, and I loved the arts, and I was a theater major, but I realized quickly that I was not going to make a living in theater. So I had to get out of my my undergraduate degree. I had enough credits for political science, so I graduated with political science and a minor in theater and English. And then I got hired here in April of 1987. It was I worked part-time for a short time, like in juvenile probation in Bucks County. I was a counselor, and then got hired here in April of '87 in Bensalem. I've been here ever since. Since then, went back to school, got a master's degree and other education in law enforcement. But it's a great career, and I've enjoyed the last 33 plus years in Bensalem. Has given me some fantastic opportunities and let me do some interesting things in the community and in law enforcement.
Awesome, thank you for that. I think it's really cool. I was going to ask you to bring up that that little fact about you being a theater major, because I think that's so interesting, especially for where you're at now. And it looks like might be getting G back. That's our lovely production assistant, Kristen, who's kind of been behind the scenes helping us with technical issues. So is G there? We can bring him back on. Hi, G.
There he is.
I'm back. Fred.
So G,
This is life in Hollywood.
Yeah,
this is what goes when you're on TV. This is what happened. Fred, I'm sorry. We had a little technical difficulty. I'm so happy you're here. Jess, did you do the intro of
yes.
Fred?
Yeah, so I didn't do a deep intro like I know that you wanted to do, but we go over the first question and talk about how Fred kind of got into law enforcement. So you're okay taking it from there?
I am. So Fred, I didn't hear your answer to that. I know you spoke about why you got into law enforcement. I also found it interesting, some of the work you studied in college. And I don't know if you want to share that with the people that are listening. What was your major when you were at the college and university?
We talked about that I was originally a theater major, so we went over that.
You did? Okay. So you have to promise to do, in this interview, you have to put your acting aside, your theater days aside, and let's get right to it.
Some people say I do it every day at work, so.
Good. Awesome. So we have some really important questions that I think the committee came up with. We know that the work that police officers do is difficult. It's not an easy job around the country. And here in Bucks County, we know it's not an easy job. We know that the men and women that do it risk their lives every day to make sure that the communities are safe, that people have what they need. Our goal, of course, is to learn more about the work that you do and your team do, and how we can better relationships and continue to build relationships between police departments and community of color. So I want to get right into the first question that our committee came up with. Obviously, a few weeks back, we all watched the tragic murder of George Floyd, a very terrible situation that we all had to see and witness. And I guess one of the questions we wanted to ask you, the committee wanted to ask you, is what impact did the murder of George Floyd and others have on your officers' response and interactions with communities of color?
Yeah, it's a good question, interesting, because, obviously I watched like everyone else, and I'm sitting there watching the TV, and I'm like, am I seeing what I'm seeing? A man being killed on live TV, or the tapes that we saw. And, law enforcement was disgusted and ashamed, and every adjective you could think of regarding, the murder of George Floyd. And it literally 9 minutes set us back 40 years. And, but for us in Bensalem, to be honest, it doesn't change much for us. So we didn't need an incident to make us better police or to take a deep look at ourselves. I think, we've been doing it for years. And if you go back at least, to 1992, 1993, 1994, the Bill Clinton era, when Bensalem became the second police department in the Commonwealth, to really engage the community policing philosophy. Bill Clinton came out with a lot of programs, actually was very good for law enforcement funding, and we can certainly get into that later about money and what exactly, it does for us. But we've been doing initiatives for many, many decades. And now more than ever, I think people need to see that, and we need to have that constant communication. We have had an open door policy in Bensalem long before George Floyd. We meet with groups. We sit on so many different committees. If there's a committee or a group in Bensalem, you're going to find either myself or a member of my staff or an officer involved. So, it shouldn't have been George Floyd, shouldn't have been the incident to make everybody see this and get involved. Law enforcement should have been doing it a long time ago. With that said, hopefully, my colleagues and brothers and sisters in law enforcement, for those that weren't doing it, if anything, they should be doing it now, because there is a real understanding that you must have for the whole community. It was said in the 1800s. So Robert Peel, the father of law enforcement, the police are the community and the community are the police. And in 2020, that expression that's from the 1800s, I forget the exact date, is more important now than ever. It's not about us. It's about we work for the community, and we have to be a part of that community. We have to engage in the community. We have to protect the community. We have to provide a service for the community. We have to represent the community. And I know, G, you're going to get into that a little later, too.
Yeah. That's a perfect segue. So I know in some of our conversations, we were talking about this idea of community policing. Obviously, with so many tragic incidents, whether it's the George Floyd or Breonna Taylor, the issue of how do police departments get involved with communities of color and become a part of that community, an organic part of that community. And so the committee that's been working on these questions came up with a question around community policing. So they said, tell me about Bensalem's police department's community policing policies. What kind of initiatives do you guys do to be a part of the community?
So you used two words that I'm glad you used, policy and initiative. And community policing is not a policy, and community policing is not an initiative. It's a philosophy. It's a way of doing business every day. Policy means it could change. An initiative normally comes and goes. There's a start and a stop. These are not policies, and these are not initiatives, and these are not programs. This is a philosophy. It's a way of policing. And, again, we've been doing it since the early mid-1900s, not that old, 1990s, where we really have to engage the public. And I don't want officers to respond to a call and quickly get out of that call as quick as possible. If they have to engage with the community and do follow-up and work with that particular person, whoever it might be, treating everyone equal and giving everybody the same amount of attention and time. Now, with that said, we also have to engage in different programs. So now I'll use the word program and different initiatives to make that philosophy of community policing happen. We do that in Bensalem. We are the only municipality that has a police athletic league, free of charge. And it started in 1994, somewhere around there. And we have about 1,200 kids that we, at no charge, not like some of the other leagues that have to charge because they have to pay people and all that, and that's fine. But we bring in whatever group, whatever community wants to engage. We're engaged with houses of worship. We're engaged with the NAACP. I'm engaged with any organization that wants to engage, and I try to reach out. We have a very strong minority recruitment initiative. As far as I know, and I've been saying this, and no one's called me or corrected me on it, and I don't know out of every police department in Pennsylvania, but certainly in Bucks County, we are the only police department that has members of the NAACP that sit on our hiring board. So they actually have an impact on stage 3 of our hiring. They sit with every recruit that makes it to that step, and they get to interview with other individuals, and they score the people. And matter of fact, I was just talking to Bill Bennett, who's one of the vice presidents. I think there's a couple of vice presidents. And we're actually going to sit down because he made an interesting point that they never know the follow through, what happens next. I said, you know, Bill, that's a great point. So we're going to sit down with all 4 members of the hiring board, all 4 minority members, and let them know the follow-up, because that's just something I just assumed they knew, but they didn't. So we're always got to improve every day. Tomorrow, we're going to do something better than we did today. And if someone brings something to my attention, we're on it. We're going to fix it. We're going to make it better. We're going to make it happen.
Yeah, Fred, I think that's important. Can you, when you and I were talking, we were discussing how historically communities of color have not always been treated fairly by police and law enforcement, have had challenges with that relationship. Can you talk about how these philosophies that you're describing now, that transfer into programs like the Police Athletic League, like having the NAACP represented on the hiring, how that translates into building trust with communities of color?
Yeah, I think anytime you can be open, if you want to use the word transparent, whatever the adjective is, whatever the word is, you could be open, it's going to give you a little bit better communication and trust. Is it the end all God all? No, because tomorrow, if there's something new out there, I want to do it. Whatever we can do, because it doesn't just pain me, it hurts me when I hear some of the stories that are told, and I'm like, listen, I'm not proud of things that have happened in the country. I only can do with what I control here in Bensalem. And if something's brought to my attention, we're going to fix it. And if we messed up, we're going to take responsibility for it, as we have. But if I can fix it, we're going to fix it. So all these other projects that we've talked about, the hiring with the NAACP and PAL basketball, then we have some real things. We have, I mean, those are real, but we have, checks and balances. So you've heard me talk before. We are the only police department in Bucks County that has, we're only 1 in 14 in the Commonwealth that is nationally accredited. That's the platinum standard of policing. There's other departments in Bucks County that have state accreditation. We have the state accreditation too. Now, what does that mean to the general public? If you're in a laboratory and you work in labs and you work in different offices and you work in academia, your college is an accredited university, that means you're held to a different standard. It's the same thing in law enforcement. We're held to a higher standard. So what does that mean? That means we've got to cross our T's and dot our I's. We do a bias-based policing report every year. What that does is talks about our arrests. It talks about how many African Americans are we arresting, how many Hispanics are we arresting, how many Caucasians or how many Caucasian people are we arresting. It talks about arrest by race, arrest by address, or talks about the U.S. Census population in Bensalem. Are our numbers in line? Are we arresting more people than we should be? Is that something? Now, is that the end all God all also? No. We have policies and procedures, well over 100, that are checked by national accreditation and state accreditation. Our use of force policy, which you're hearing, is a huge topic right now across America. We just retweaked it. We retweaked our use of force policy, so it's constantly changing. We have a 19-page use of force policy. It is very robust. We have checks and balances. We have policies that if somebody else, if an officer sees an officer doing something wrong, they're to intervene immediately, render aid to the victim or the person being arrested or whoever in that case, and report the officer and take action. And guess what? They do.
Yeah, Fred, let me ask you something about that last point, about officers that may see something that's not according to appropriate policies. How do you create a culture, a work culture, where officers feel comfortable and empowered enough to say, hey, this was wrong. This is not what we stand for. This is not morally or right to do. How do you create that culture among police departments, among your staff and your team?
It's a great question. I'm not sure I have the perfect answer. I'm going to give you the answer what I think. Mm-hmm. As you would with the public, we treat the officers fair. Everybody gets a fair shake. I'll give you, for instance, when I came on in 1987, and I'm going to go back 33 years, and if you weren't one of the favorite of the bosses, let's say, that worked here, you didn't get overtime, you didn't get special details, you didn't get special assignments. Now in 2020, you get the overtime, you get these special assignments based on your merit, not based on whether or not I have a beer with you on a Saturday, but based on the fact that you come to work, that you're a good producer, that, you don't have complaints against you, that you volunteer for PAL, you do this, you do that. So that's how I think, that's part of it, that I think the folks that come here see that you're treated fairly. So we try to take that out into the public. And I'll be honest, I can't convince everybody that they're treated fairly. I've got to do better at that. And when I say at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. If something goes wrong, it's my fault. It's my fault one way or the other. So we have to improve on that. And I think Fred Harran thinks we're doing an okay job, but I know there's people, whether they're on this call or people out in the public, on social media. I try to monitor. I will not debate people on social media, but I will send them my email address to contact me, that they think they've been treated unfairly. And 90% of the time, if not more, I don't want to say 100, but all the ones I can think of that say things on social media, then when I call them in and we go over the facts, oh, I didn't remember it that way. Oh, I didn't see that. Or so we try to do the best we can. But I think the answer to your question is treating people fairly, having policies and procedures that cops want to know what the rules are. And lacking rules, then it becomes chaotic. We have rules for everything we do here. We have policies.
Right. So that's actually a perfect segue into the next thing I wanted to discuss with you is what kind of diversity training do your team participate in? You talked about the statewide accreditation process, and you can elaborate more on that, if you want. But the committee wanted to know, we thought our listeners would benefit from knowing what kind of diversity training does our law enforcement officers get?
So we have training within our state curriculum. We have diversity training. We have de-escalation training. We have use of force training. We're bringing in right now a company out of Florida. It's called the Right Leadership, and it's racial intelligence. I got to remember the acronym. There's so many acronyms in my brain. It is, I'm trying to find, I can't find it. Racial intelligence, something, training, education, something like that. So it actually came to me, I forget who brought it to my attention, but it got to my attention and we were able to secure the funding. It's extremely expensive, but I've talked to police that have had this training, and it talks about how to, deal with the community, but also more, how does an officer, and this is what people don't understand, this is normally what people don't really get sometimes. This is a crazy job, and certainly we take it, so we got to take the good with the bad. But you could be dealing with a 5-year-old, as sick as this sounds, that's been sexually assaulted 1 minute, and dealing with another incident, an hour later or 10 minutes later. And how does your emotions bounce up and down the scale like that and doesn't drive you crazy? So this training is going to talk to officers and teach them how to go from 0 to 20 and back down to 0 and deal with their emotions, so that you don't have a situation like a George Floyd or an Eric Gardner case, where something that seems to be peaceful at first, and I'm not going to debate the facts, but something that seems to be peaceful, next thing you know, a person's being, got a cop around their neck or a knee on their neck. So how does that happen? So it's going to talk to the officers and train them. And what we're going to do is we're going to do train the trainers here. And the goal is, I know Matt Weintraub, who was on your show, I think first or second, he wants to get it to all 800 cops in the county. So we're going to do a train the trainer and have our officers in Bucks County trained so they can bring it out, because we can't send 800 cops to this training for the Florida folks. It's, there is a cost to it. So,
sure.
So we constantly looking for training. We are actually in the process now. My deputy, Bill McVeigh, is running with this program. We are going to be the first. I like to say that all the time. Bensalem seems to be the first in Bucks County for many, many things in the Commonwealth, sometimes in the nation for a lot of projects. But we are bringing a chaplain program. Bishop White, it's actually the Bishop White, who's the bishop at Lincolnia Tabernacle. His brother has the church over at Richelieu and Galloway Road. Mark White. He is going to be our lead chaplain, and then we're going to bring in other clergy to train into a police chaplain program so that they can be out there with police, diffusing situations, and also for police just to talk, we're human beings. We need to release. We need to talk about the issues that we're faced with. As I sit here today talking with you, there's half a dozen things in the last 33 years that are always in my brain that I cannot shake. I just know how, I just put them in a compartment. But if I think about it, it pops right to the surface like a magic 8-ball, and you see the thing come to the surface. There are half a dozen to a dozen incidences that I just can't shake from my head. And I deal with it. Does that come at a cost or price? I don't know the answer to that. I've never done something that because of that, one led me to two, but it's as clear as day. And there were very traumatic events. So police need people to talk to deal with these issues. So all these things I just said in the last 5 minutes, I think, gets our officers there and helps them. We got to constantly find different types of training, diversity, and do all this sort of stuff to engage in our community. And I want to make people, especially people of color, I don't want somebody who's an individual of color to feel uncomfortable in Bensalem, that they're going to be harassed, picked on, or we're looking at them because, they're African American, driving down the street at 11 o'clock at night. That if it happens, I want to know about it because we're going to deal with it. And you got to remember, G, everything we do is on camera now. Besides people's cameras, the cops are cameras in the cars, front and back, body cameras, cameras in the building. There's cameras everywhere now.
Mm-hmm. And you when we were talking, Fred, you had mentioned that there's been times in your career where you had to address officers for misconduct, things that they did not do that was, morally right or by the policy. And, you didn't, of course, go into names and all of that, but you went into the fact that you had to deal with that. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how are you dealing with those discrepancies, officers that do practice misconduct?
Yeah. So since my tenure as director for 14 years, 2006, the mayor appointed me as director. We have had 24 officers in that time that are no longer employed here. Out of those 24 reasons you just mentioned, 2 out of those 24, so 2 out of 24 took me to court, if you will. The township prevailed on both cases. So 22 cases, the union did not, and this answers your other question too a little bit, so it's a good point. 22 of those cases, the union supported the administration, and this is extremely unusual. But because of what you said earlier, G, the cops in Bensalem don't want, for lack of a better phrase, I'll use bad apples or people with problems, whatever. They don't want them here. They don't want them here. They want to come and they want a good police department, and they want to be known for being a good and fair police department. So 22 of those people are no longer here. Now, you see a lot on TV right now, and Governor Wolf, I think, just signed it about 3 weeks ago. Attorney General Shapiro was big with this. I'm the vice president of the Pennsylvania Police Chiefs. The police chiefs signed off on this policy that Governor Wolf signed. What the people have known as being past the trash. So if you leave in Bensalem, our labor attorney, who's very good, says you don't seal up their records, because if they go to another department, we're on the hook if they do something wrong, and I don't want that responsibility. So if they sign a waiver for a background investigation, the next employee gets to see everything they got. So we don't bury it, we don't shred it, it stays in their file.
Right, which I just want to highlight why that's significant, and you can just add to it, because there had been a policy in certain police departments around the country where you have a cop doing things he shouldn't do or she shouldn't do, and then they go to another police department, and that police department is not made aware fully of this person's background and tendency to have misconduct as a work tool. So talk about how opening up those records can help prevent this, I don't want to say the spread, but cops hopping from various police departments and not being accountable.
It should prevent that. Now, I will tell you that there are probably occasions where another agency, whether it be in Pennsylvania or not, might think that the reason why we got rid of somebody wasn't enough for them not to take them, or so much time has elapsed, that has that person changed. It's possible, right? Or people would be in prison forever, right? So yes, people do change, but that's not for me to decide. My books are open, and if that other department finds they want to hire that person, there's nothing I can do legally to stop that. I will tell you that 90% of the time, I'm going to say 90, it's not, and everybody's here is probably saying it should be 100, maybe so. 90% of the time, another police department won't even touch the person if they left on for a reason that, that wasn't conduct becoming an officer. So it works most of the time. Do people get through? Yes.
Yeah. And that's something that I think we have to continue to address. How can a regular community person or a person of color, if they experience something that doesn't feel right or is not legal from a police officer, how can those reports be made to your team?
Great question. Both entrances to the police department, there are forms. Online, there's forms. You can email me. You can reach out to the mayor's office if that's the way you want to go. You can reach out. We're about ready. And I don't know if Joyce Hadley, I'm sorry, Karen Downer is on here or not. We're about ready to enter an agreement with the NAACP. You can go to the NAACP, and you can do that today anyway. File a complaint. You can reach out to a Bensalem council person if you wanted to file a complaint, or walk into the police station, demand to see a supervisor. I can tell you right now, any one of those avenues you pick, you don't have to pick two. You can pick any one of those avenues, will get you a follow-up, and we'll get a full investigation there. And if you don't like that, contact me directly. If you don't like the outcome of the investigation, and it's different levels where it's going to get to me or not, depending on what the complaint is. But if you're not happy with it, you can always reach out to me. I don't want someone to feel now. That doesn't mean you're going to agree with our outcome. If you don't like my outcome, at the end of the day, I'm the finder of fact. You can go to Matt Weintraub's office, and you can go to Josh Shapiro's office. If you don't like those two, you can go to the FBI. So the reporting process is endless. I will tell you, if you go right to the FBI or you go right to Attorney General Shapiro, they're going to ask you, did you do, because their officers would become overwhelmed. And because you don't like the way the officer talked to you on a car stop, the FBI is not going to investigate that. Right.
And before we get to the questions, we're getting some questions from our listeners, which I think is great. And just want to say shout out to all of our listeners. They've always been engaged. They've asked the tough questions. And Fred, you've been on a lot of these webinars we've been having. So thank you for being engaged. When we were talking earlier in the week, we were talking about this concept which you described, the community policing. And I had shared how, as a person of color, there is this sort of inherent fear that you have of police officers. You feel like, okay, if they stop me, what's going to happen? And I said, Fred, how do we fix that? How do we make that better? How do we build better partnerships between communities of color and law enforcement? And you talked about some of the programs and philosophies that are important to you and your team. One of those ideas was, and I hope it's okay to share this with our listeners, is the community, the cops being a part of the community through the ice cream truck. Do you want to talk about that? Because it's just, I know people are going to say, okay, what the heck does the ice cream truck have to do with, law enforcement and communities of color? But I hope that you can explain in a way to talk about what you intend to build through that process.
You gave away my surprise.
I know. I'm telling you, I was looking forward. Me and Jess were talking about, we got to get him on the ice cream. We got to get him to talk about this ice cream truck.
So, I've been doing this 33 years. And one of the reasons why I love coming to work in Bensalem is because I'm allowed to try new things. Because I want to do new things. I can't just come in here and look at my computer and go to lunch and have a meeting. I like to do new things and engage. And I think you're right. We're taking possession of a truck this week or next week. worked it all out. And by the way, everything I'm saying, zero, I don't know who's on this call, so I don't know if there's any councilman on here or anything. Zero cost to the taxpayer, folks, zero cost to the taxpayer. So let me just, I got money donated already. We are converting a vehicle into an ice cream truck, and our plan is to have a couple hours, a day on a weekend and different events. It's like, I'm not going to put a police officer in an ice cream truck for their salary, but we're going to have some people volunteer as well. I'm going to get in there. I'm just afraid I'm going to eat the profits. And we're going to go around to different communities all over the township. We're going to go when school finally gets back in session, maybe hit school after school. And we're going to go into the apartment complexes. We have 33 apartment complexes in Bensalem. 52% of the hotel, that's hotels. Yeah, we have 33 apartment complexes in Bensalem. We're going to go in and give away free ice cream to kids, not soft serve, the hard, the sandwiches and fudgy wudgies, tacos, whatever it's called. And we're going to have police, one more tool. It's all it is. It's all it is a small tool to break down that barrier so that a cop can talk to family members and parents and kids, but also we're going to have a lot of information. I don't think I talked to you about this, G. We're going to have on the decals on the truck, we're going to have a lot of social service information for parents so that if they don't feel comfortable asking someone why they're enjoying their ice cream with their child, they can see information or a hotline, and there might be a brochure on the truck, and just take it to give them information, mental health, drugs, homelessness, financial, et cetera, children, youth, whatever it might be. And that's another project we're working on too. But this is going to be pretty cool. There's no one in the area that has this. There are a lot of law enforcement agencies throughout the country that have ice cream trucks. I thought I was a genius, but I'm not.
Yeah, and I just love the concept behind it is putting officers, law enforcement, in a position to have some relationship building with the community, to connect with them. Right?
That's all it is. Everything we do, some people think ice cream truck. I don't know if the comments, people think I'm nuts or not, but every little thing we can do to break down and make one more person feel comfortable with the police, it's a good day to me. If one person woke up that morning not trusting us, not liking us, and then they go to sleep that night like, holy smokes, I can't believe the interaction I just had with the cop, then that's a good day, and I'll sleep well that night. And I think that's extremely important. I don't know, we didn't talk about it, but we just came up last year with the Behind Closed Doors. It's a trailer that simulates a child's bedroom, and it has 100 items in there, drugs and mental health and human trafficking, of signs and things for parents to look for. And it was a huge hit. Obviously, it got shut down because of COVID. I got a request from Baltimore School District to go down there with this vehicle. I couldn't take it on the 95 to Baltimore, but we've been all over Bensalem, all over the county with it for open houses. And if your group, once COVID's ended, not just the Y, we've talked about this, but any organization, mi casa su casa, your organization wants to have a meeting in the police station once COVID's situated, whatever the word is, not only will we host a meeting, but I'll also bring in dinner for you. And I know you're happy about that, G. We talked about that already. And we got some cool toys and some cool things for people to see, but it's your police station. So I just work here.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight when you talked about just now about connecting with social service agencies to help community members or whatever they may need. I think that that's really important. As a person in nonprofit and social service, I see the impact, not just that the YW has on the community, but there are a lot of great nonprofits in Bucks. And that relationship is, I think, an important platform to have to bring people together.
I use this at a meeting the other day. The police sometimes are, jack of all trades, master of none. At 3 o'clock in the morning, you call 911. We're there within 3 to 5 minutes, no charge. And we get called for everything. And when I came on in 1987, I didn't realize I had to be a drug counselor, a mental health advocate, all these other things. I grew up in New York City. 1983, crack cocaine was born. Violence got crazy in New York. And I wanted to, part of it was I wanted to make a difference, lock up bad guys, make the world safer. These are young kid ideas. you know, and there was a lot of truth behind it. But as time goes on, I'm realizing, well, that's just and I think we've had this conversation, that's just a very small part of my job. Our job here is everything else, because people have no one else to call. They call us, believe it or not. Even people, and we've had groups that are on the, and this cracks me up, are on the internet bashing us, but yeah, when they have a problem, they call us. And then we get out there, like you guys were like the last guys I wanted to call, but at the end of the day, we're the only game in town. So I find it's going to be imperative in the next wave of law enforcement, as community policing was so important in the 90s, we're going to have to start partnering with social service, because life is just a lot more complicated now. And the mental health problems are just off the charts. And there's not enough help for people. There's not enough help with drugs. There's not enough help with mental health. There's not enough help for parents that have issues with their children, or parents that have issues, you know, with domestic violence, or every walk of social service in Bucks County needs to be tapped. And I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but that's the program we're working on next in Bucks, and we're going to roll this out soon. It's going to be a model for America.
I think that's awesome, and I'm excited about that. I think it's going to break down some barriers between law enforcement and the community, and build bridges, you know, and make a healthy community. So we've been talking a lot, and we've been getting a lot of questions. I don't know if you can see the questions there, but Jess, I want Jess to jump back in and just answer some of the questions from our amazing listeners.
Yeah, and you went way longer than you were supposed to. No, I'm
in trouble. You see this? We were talking. You're
fine. You're fine. So we're going to get to the first question. It says, when Homeland Security / ICE comes for undocumented people, there is Bensalem police, you know, a police officer along with them. How does this action build trust in our immigrant communities and YWCA Family Center participants? So are you familiar with our family centers?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of what this person's talking about.
So the first, I don't know, a question to a question, and I don't know if they're referring back to, you know, something I pushed a couple of years ago, and maybe that's what they're referring to. But I'm not familiar in August of 2020 that Bensalem Police is accompanying ICE on any type of call for undocumented individuals. So I am not familiar with that. If that listener participant has a specific incident, I would like to know about it, because I don't believe that's happening. If they're referring to what I think, and I hate to go back in time, but my feelings are not quite that different. I promoted a program some years back, I think 2-3 years ago, called 287G, and I think that's what they're referring to, for Bensalem Police working with immigration for people that commit crime, that are here illegally. Only people that commit crime. My goal is to prevent crime and make people feel safe. That is a very important part of our job. We have to do everything else too, but I want to make people feel safe, and there's ways of doing that. But I also don't want people to be victims of crime. So I'm going back a couple of years, but we're not doing that. But if this person knows of someone now that Bensalem Police are going out with ICE agents, I'm unaware of it, so please do call me directly. And I think, Jess, you're going to put my email up there for any follow-up.
Yep, definitely. Thanks. So next question is, how many officers of color do you have compared to white officers? Yeah,
not enough, but 9% right now. So we have just about 9% of our officers are officers of color, African-American, Hispanic, Asian, and Muslim. So we have some officers. Asian and Muslim were very important to me as well, because we have a substantial Asian community and a Muslim community. We have what will be 2 mosques in town, 2 new ones that are being built, one that exists already, and then they're going to move into their new mosque. But I think that's very important, and but we need to do better. But we went from 4 or 5 to 9 officers of color. And some people say, well, it's not enough, and I agree. So we are trying, and we're gonna keep pushing on, and we're gonna get better at it, and we're gonna do recruiting. But On the other hand, too, I need people to reach out. I need the community to be ambassadors too. People like the NAACP and other groups to encourage people to join Bensalem Police. And I think we had 22 African-American, 24, I'm sorry, 22 men and 2 female African-Americans that applied to the last test, and we hired 5, I believe. So, no, I'm sorry, we hired 4. So we need more. We need to do better, but we're trying.
Yeah. All right. So then, how long has the NAACP been on the hiring board?
They were on the hiring since Steve Moran was the director. So 14, I'm going to say 14 plus years, if not longer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say probably closer to 16, 17 years, but at least 14.
Yeah.
And Jess, can I just ask a follow-up question to that? Fred, you mentioned that the NAACP is going to be, they're a part of the process, but there's I guess a part where you're going to circle back to them and let them know the outcomes of the interview process?
Yeah, totally my bad. I take full responsibility. You know what they say, never assume things, right? Because I can't say it on the thing, but you know what that means.
Yeah.
So I just took it for granted since all 4 of the people, all 4 minorities are heavily involved with township functions. And I see all of them all the time. And I just assumed that they knew the outcomes. And I found out that they did not know the outcomes. So I just today, again, I talked to Bill Bennett because he called me last weekend or this weekend, I forget, this past weekend. And I said, Bill, my bad. We're going to get all 4 together. We're going to sit down, open up the books and look at all the scores. And I can show you how everybody progressed. There's nothing to hide here, folks. Nothing to hide. Absolute answer is yes, we're doing that.
Great.
Thanks, Fred.
So then there's another question kind of about the makeup of, police on the police force. So there's how many women are on the force. And I just wanted to know if there's any other questions that come in regarding, the makeup of the police force, if you want to kind of just touch on that.
Yeah, boy, I didn't.
So the participant's question was how many women are on, but I didn't know if you could go into a little more detail just about, the general makeup.
I believe 5 women right now, if I'm not mistaken. So we have 5 women, 1 Muslim woman, a male Asian Indian, 2 Latinos, I believe, and
How many police force altogether?
106. And 5 or 6 African Americans. I'm not sure what the total numbers. It's 9. It's 9 minorities. I know that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the next question is about the ice cream truck, and I don't even know if
I saw that. You gotta.
if we can be talking, if we can be talking about it, but they're asking how soon it's going to be.
I messed that up. That's my fault. I messed that up. I'm sorry, Fred. I'm
going to kill you, buddy. The ice cream truck.
That's my bad. Sorry. Yes.
The ice cream truck, I just can't pull it off this summer, I don't think. If we have a summer that's warm, if we have a fall that's warm, you could see it out in October.
There you go. And no more talk about the ice cream truck. No more further conversations. All right, so moving on. We have building relationships in the community also requires social media engagement. This morning, someone posted to the official Twitter and Facebook accounts for the department a photo about a wonderful lunch with a private group, the Adorable Deplorables, which supports the current occupant of the White House. What is the department's policy regarding vetting of public media postings, especially where the post implies a particular political endorsement that calls into question the department and its members' bias?
That person is absolutely correct. We were 100% wrong. That post, if you notice, it's down. I got in this morning. I was in court for the last 2 days. I was in trial. This morning I was met by some folks that told me about it. and it was taken down and the situation was corrected. That post should have never been put up. Things happen, and all I can do is apologize, take responsibility, and correct it, which is what I did. That post should not have been put up. What we've been doing is people have been bringing in lunches, and we've been, some of them ask us to take their picture and put it up, so we do it. Some of the companies want some publicity out of it, so I don't really care. But because you're right, our policy says anything that's politically motivated or anything like that, we're not supposed to put up. And at first, when I looked at it this morning, and then I saw, the adorable deplorables, a play on words for the deplorables, which is a quasi-political thing. It came right down. I apologize. We were wrong. It won't happen again. I take responsibility.
All right. Okay. So given Mr. Harran's statement moments ago about how he didn't think he would end up as a drug counselor and the need to partner with social services, is he opposed to relocating or reallocating funds given to police departments towards social services organizations so that they can better support citizens requiring mental health support, drug treatment, etc.? Or is he wedded to the funds always being directed towards the police as the sole place for people to call?
So a couple of issues. One is I believe that we're always going to need a strong police support and position in the community. I believe in that. The police are the front lines to law and order. We border, and I'm speaking now Bensalem, and Bensalem being in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that's important in a few seconds. We border Philadelphia, which is the opioid capital of the United States. Our challenges are Philadelphia. It is very important that we work hard to keep the criminal element out of Bensalem and out of Bucks County for Philadelphia. That needs a strong police presence. Our calls for service are high. 52% of the hotel rooms in Bucks County are in Bensalem Township. 44% of our population's apartment complex based, which means it's transient. People move year to year sometimes. The Commonwealth, if anybody knows the difference between a state and a Commonwealth, there's 4 Commonwealths in the United States. A Commonwealth means basically the authority of the municipality goes to the lowest form of government, which for us is Bensalem Township is the lowest form of government. Drug treatment, mental health is controlled at the county level. So Bensalem, there is no centralized budget for policing in Bucks County, if you will. There's 39 police departments, each get their own budget from their municipalities. So to us to redirect funds to the county can't just say that funds are going to go to Bensalem Township because it could be going to Quakertown. So why would Bensalem taxpayers fund a program in Quakertown? It's the way we're designed as a Commonwealth. I can tell you that there's funds used for a lot of other things that maybe should be going, and I don't want to get into specifics. I could certainly talk to anybody offline, or even if the YW wanted to host another meeting regarding that, I would certainly, because it's not a quick answer. But I can't give money. It doesn't work where I can give money from my police budget to mental health in Bucks County. It's just there's no mechanism for it, and it just doesn't work out. And I need the police to be strong, and we need to have a presence here, because at the end of the day, we need to keep crime down, need the criminal element out. I can tell you the programs we're working on will be no cost to Bensalem taxpayers, and we're working on some funding streams for bringing mental health, and we already do a lot of stuff with mental health. And as you know, our BPAIR program, the Bensalem Police Assisting in Recovery, which is now the Bucks County Police Assisting in Recovery, just went countywide, or a bunch of departments about a week or two ago, again, at minimal cost to local townships. And we're getting federal funds to fund that at the county level. So it's a quick answer to a very complex question. And it's the question behind the whole phrase, defund the police. I'm not sure people really understand what defund the police means. I think it's a good catchphrase for some people that just want to get rid of cops, but that's not what's going to happen, and that's not what it means. In some, as you see, the cities across, some of the big cities across the country, it's a problem. I love New York. I go to New York a lot, but I won't go there right now because crime is off the charts. And it's, you know, these are problems. Carmen Best, she was the police chief in Seattle, African-American female, very, very well respected in law enforcement across the nation, has just resigned. This is a good person. She is a good cop and a good leader. And Seattle has lost a leader. And certainly, I don't know the ins and outs of Seattle, but what I do know, it's going to be problematic if this becomes the wave. And we're lucky in Bensalem that, you know, we hold the line and we fight crime, and we still do it with bringing in all these programs, from ice cream truck to arrest.
All right, so the next question is asking if your department's accreditation is also international and the same accreditation of Tijuana, Mexico, maybe the most corrupt police department in the world, which was led by well-known racist, bigot, and xenophobe Joe Arpaio when it was accredited. So I know that was kind of all over the place, but yeah, if you can speak about that.
So there's two questions in that question. Joe Arpaio was from Maricopa County in Arizona. I don't know anything about Tijuana and their accreditation. I don't believe it's CALIA. I do not believe that they are a CALIA organization, but I don't know that off the top of my head. I will tell you that we have policies and procedures, accredited policies and procedures, and we must maintain them. Like anything else, whether you're accredited university, you're accredited hospital, if you have bad apples, they need to go. And I think I've been pretty clear on that we do a pretty good job at getting rid of the problems. So we have policies, we have a lot of checks and balances. I honestly cannot speak articulately on Tijuana, Mexico.
So before we get to the next questions, I don't know if you saw, there was a couple, I think you had mentioned there were four NAACP members on the hiring board, and it's looking like maybe there's only two.
It's two NAACP, 4 minorities. So the there's 4 people total. They're all 4 are minority. 2 of them are NAACP members.
I see. Okay. Just wanted clarification on that. And then I think you mentioned that the NAACP has been involved for the past 14 years, but officially, have they only been kind of officially involved for the last 2 years? Or officially on that board?
You know, I say NAACP, and I'm sure, again, another assumption, the 2 members are members of one's the vice president of the NAACP. So I consider that the NAACP, when your vice president is involved in our hiring, I consider that. And if the NAACP, if I'm saying something wrong, then let me, you know, if whoever could reach out to me and let's correct it. Mm-hmm. But I consider that the NAACP, and I'm always looking for more people to get involved. So I'm not sure of the question, but it's 4 minorities that sit on the board. 2 are members of the NAACP.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then the next question I see is B3T is a wonderful coalition that involves members from all backgrounds, and Unity Week is a great outcome. Is there any plan to expand to train other counties? And for Bensalem, is there a funding issue? I'm wondering, it says founding, but I think this person might have meant funding.
Funding, we're okay with funding right now. I shouldn't say that, but we are, you know, as far as that goes. So Building Our Bensalem is a offshoot of an organization called Communities That Care. It came out of the Tom Ridge administration when he was governor of Pennsylvania. His wife ran or started the Communities That Care initiative. And Building Our Bensalem, Bristol Township, we were actually second. I believe Bristol Township had one before us. But I now believe that there's one in every school catchment area. So every school district, I believe, has some sort of Building a Better Bensalem, whatever they call it. Every town calls it something else. And then our group took off. General Colin Powell, who was the Secretary of State under Bush II. He had a group called, I think he's still involved, called we call it Buck's Promise. It was called America's Promise. America's Promise. So we kind of entrenched with them as well.
Great. So next question is, how many racial harassment suits have you and or the BPD been named in, or it says named in, but maybe involved in since you've been in Bensalem, and what were the outcomes?
Well, suits is a legal question. I'll answer general. If that person's not happy with my answer, please feel free to reach out to me. Over the years, and I don't know how far I can go back, I'm just trying to remember in my head, we've had suits, and I do not believe we have ever been found guilty of anything. We had a suit. It wasn't racial. It was alleged that federal protected issues were violated, but we were found not guilty in a trial. There was another one there was two that were settled out of court. And I got to tell you, a lot of times these are decisions made by insurance companies, because if you could pay someone sometimes, $10,000 to go away, it's a lot cheaper than litigating it for $150,000. These are financial decisions made by insurance companies many times. Who's ever asking that question, I certainly am not going to get into names and specifics on the air, but feel free to call me, and we could certainly, there's nothing to hide. So feel free to call me. I'll go over what I can with you.
Great. The next question is, can you talk a little bit about the sex trafficking problem?
Yeah. There is a sex trafficking issue throughout the United States. We actually have a unit called the Special Investigations Unit. They work narcotics and sex trafficking because it's a problem. A lot of times it's drug related. We probably have had the most in Bucks County because my guys and gals work them aggressively. Bucks County now has we're operating a partnership with NOVA, Network of Victims Assistance, and A Woman's Place, two great social service agencies on human trafficking. And it's a problem. We have active cases. And we're working them. They're very complex cases. They're despicable crimes, and we're going to work them and do our best. But we have a lot of social service partners with that.
Great. So Fred, I know that it's, right at 2:00. There's a couple questions left. Do you have time to keep going? All right.
I'm good. My next meeting is at 4.
Okay. I don't think we'll go that long, but
I'm going to have to deliver an ice cream to G because he ain't going to make it.
All right. So the next question is kind of, just asking if do you see a problem with the fact that, the NAACP has been involved for the past 14 years and maybe officially, on this hiring board for the past 2 years, and we still only have 9% minority on the hiring board? Do you see an issue with that?
Yeah. Yeah. We're trying. Let me just, I don't want to guess. So as I told you, we had in the last test out of 230, no, it's more than that, 280 applicants, I had 24 African Americans. So I advertise every which way I can. I speak at churches. The mayor and I have been out talking about it. We send people out to Lincoln University, Cheney University. We were advertising now with social media. We don't do much paper advertisement, but we advertise in El Dia and the Tribune. El Dia is primarily Hispanic newspaper, and the Tribune is primarily African American. So we do everything that I see possible, and I'm sure I'm not seeing it all. So this might be a great next conversation for either the Y or the NAACP, but not just Bensalem, Bucks County. We can get you to the Bucks County Chiefs. I'm chair of the executive board until December. So, this is certainly, I think all the police chiefs in Bucks County have this issue, and we don't have the answer. I know for me and Bensalem, we're doing everything that we think and see is possible. But if there's another way, let me know. I'll do it. As I told Karen Downer one time, Karen, you don't have to call me to ask me to do something. The answer is always yes. You just need to work the date out with me.
So I guess, you know, this is not a question in here, but for me, kind of going off of that, you said that there was 24 African-American applicants. Do you know how many white applicants there were?
I do. There was 206.
So then you hired 5 of the African-American. How many of the white did we hire?
4 African Americans and 1 Latino. I guessed before. The numbers right in front of me. I got so many numbers in my head half the time.
That's okay.
4 African Americans, 1 Latino, 5 Caucasian. So someone out there has got to be better than me in math. So what's the percentage? 4 to 24 and 5 to 211. It's probably, we hired a higher percentage of African American than we did Caucasian.
Yeah, just curious on, you know, what kind of people are applying and how that's all kind of panning out.
I could tell you right now, it looks like it was 23 point something percent African American that we hired of those that applied. Pretty good.
So, all right, moving on.
Not good enough.
So going back to, I know you made the point about a lot of the crime kind of coming in from Philadelphia. Do you think that that's, you know, can you touch a little bit more on that?
Sure. So 80% of our crime is not from within Bensalem, as I say, 19020 residents. So it's from outside, it's outside the area. I think it's 47 to 48% of that 80 is from Philadelphia. So let me just break it down a little further. I'll just deal with the question. So out of our total arrests, 67.6% were Caucasian in 2019. 22.5% were African American. However, out of that 22.5% African American, only 4.3% were 19020 addresses. So people will say, you know, our African American population is only 7.3% from 2010. Yes. So 4.3 seems very high, but not if you take into consideration that Philadelphia's African American population is 44.2% from the Caucasian of 35.6%. Most of our crime is coming from Philadelphia. Bill Bennett just asked me to run some numbers. Somebody had complained, I don't know, complained is the right word, to the NAACP that we were arresting many more African Americans at the hotels on Route 1 on the weekends than we were Caucasian. The weekend of August 7th, we made 12 arrests at the motels on Route 1. 11 were white, 1 was black. The weekend of July 31st, we made 8 arrests. 3 were white, 5 were African American. All 5 African American were from the city of Philadelphia, and so forth and so on. So we don't stop because you're African American versus white. We're not, engaging with you because you're African American versus white. And I don't want to get into the specifics of how we come across as 12 people, but I don't know what to say. I mean, there's some things that no matter, I give out the facts. I understand that people still have that perception, and I will do whatever I possibly can to work on people understanding the perception. But I wanted to, it said something earlier, and I think it's very important to touch on. What can you do when you feel like you were unfairly treated? I beg. If you feel you are unfairly treated, you make a complaint. Do not fight it out on the street. The street is not the courtroom. We have branches of the system for a reason. The street is not the courtroom. If you feel you were unjustly arrested or you didn't like the confrontation you had with police, make the complaint. Everything is on video and audio. Please make the complaint. Do not fight with the officers on the street.
Yeah.
Looks like we have 2 questions left. So this one says, does your department and do our officers feel like they are supported? They are called upon to answer any call anytime, never knowing what's behind the door, who's waiting with what. always on razor's edge, split seconds to react. They have to be. But the public is concerned about responses. How do we provide emotional support, yet correct the areas of weakness?
The Bensalem officers, again, I think they feel like they're supported here in Bensalem. The residents support the police. We've been very lucky not to have, that we've had an occasion. We've had it on some occasions by some groups, screaming at the police, or, you only did this because of my color. And then I'd go back and sometimes people are so articulate, they have me convinced that we did it, that we were wrong. And then I go back and look at the tape and I'm like, that's not what happened with what that person just said. So I think the officers are very frustrated with what they see nationwide. It hurts me. I don't wear anything that indicates I'm a police officer when I'm not working. I try not to because I'm paranoid. I'm paranoid going into restaurants. I went into a place and I had a thin blue line mask on, and the hostess seated me. Oh, you're a police officer, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? So this is, police our suicide rates high to begin with. It's getting higher now. Police are having a lot of issues when years ago, dentists had a very high suicide rate years ago, and I hated going to the dentist. I was a fear, like snakes and rats. I just hated it. And when you hate, when you show that hatred towards a profession, at the end of the day, we're human beings. When people tell you they hate you and they're watching on TV, I have to shut it off. I cannot watch any news channel at night with the cops on the lines and people throwing bottles and screaming at them. And even some things that have been said here in Bensalem, like, why? So it takes a toll, but and it's sad because that's not why we took this job. And I think this will pass. I think it will end at some point, and the pendulum will swing back. And I tell the guys and gals that work here, just keep doing your job. We're not changing business post George Floyd, pre George Floyd. We treated people fair. We're going to continue, and we're not going to stop, and we're not going to get upset with people. We're going to continue to do our job and do new things and continue to break those barriers down. And, I've got to do a better job of making sure that everybody understands that. If we want to do more projects with NAACP and the Y and other, and that's the only way to convince people that everything is good. Is something wrong every now and then? Of course, but you got to bring it to our attention right away. I see there's a question, there's a statement up here by someone about not being involved with the NAACP for 14 years. And maybe Lenore Hope and Bill Bennett, who I know are members of the NAACP, have been sitting on our board. So it might be, in my mind, tomatoes, and I apologize, but I'll have to figure out from Karen how we make sure that it is the NAACP being represented. I've assumed that these two individuals who are members of the NAACP, one is a vice president, that they're representing the NAACP. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I'm going to fix it. We're going to fix it, and I want that representation because I want the organization who's a strong, good organization that does great work. I want them represented. So if I've been misrepresenting things, they are members of the NAACP, so I'm saying the NAACP, but I could be wrong. I don't know. But we'll fix it. Tomorrow, I want to do a better job than today. And I'm hoping that people listen to this and they've got some ideas. Some people, no matter what I say, I'm not going to convince them. But do we make mistakes? Come on, of course we do. We make mistakes. That post was a mistake. The post today about the adorable, whatever it's called, deplorables, right? As soon as I saw it, it was down. We fixed it. I took responsibility. I apologized. I fixed it. I can't do anything more than that. I hope whoever wrote that accepts my apology. And it's not like I apologized but left it up. Then I'd be a hypocrite, right? It came right down. So I just hope that we can continue to work. Go ahead. I don't want to keep talking.
No, you're good. There's two more. So defund the police is an imperative initiative to address police brutality versus the community in I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm saying the wrong
Yeah,
word.
typo, yeah.
In addressing social issues that the police does not need to be involved with. The police departments needs new leadership. Why are the police authorities so aggressively, why do they so aggressively oppose? I apologize.
That's okay. Well, so I'm hoping, I don't know who wrote that, but I'm hoping they're not talking about Bensalem needs new leadership. Of course, they're human beings. If whatever you do, if you worked in a hospital or a school or a Wawa or a Target, if they said, hey, we want to cut your jobs, we want to cut your salary, what human being will say, sign me up for that if that's your job? Of course, as a human being, you're going to protect one. It's a profession that you love, that you've been doing for a long time. Most people, this isn't a job, it's a career. It's a way of life. And so no one's going to want their job threatened. Who would vote for that? And you can't get rid of police. You need police. If anybody out there thinks that you could just abolish police and everybody's going to sing Kumbaya and get along because the cops are gone, that's just, what do I want to say? It's crazy. It's ludicrous. It's insane. People are going to commit crime. There's always going to be criminals out there. And if you can find a way to make sure there's no criminals, call me. Let's join forces and we'll get on the speaking circuit for $100,000 an hour and travel the country selling that plan, because I don't know how to do it. We're doing everything possible with new law enforcement initiatives like DNA, like we talked about last week, DNA to ice cream trucks. I'll do it all. I'll do it all. Whatever it can be to make people feel more comfortable, to make crime less. That's important. To make people comfortable. They know they walk to their car, they're going to be safe, or go to the movie theater, they're going to be safe, or go to the Acme, they're going to be safe. That's our job. So why do people get aggressively upset about it? Because who wants to hear people say, yeah, sign me up to take my job? No one in their right mind would say, sign me up for that. But policing costs money. It is what it is. It costs a lot of money to police. In every municipality across this nation, the police department makes up a large majority of the budget. It is what it is. The life expectancy of a police officer is, I think, 10 years after retirement. We get paid a good salary. We have good benefits. I'm not denying that at all. But you know what? It wears on you. It wears on me. Some nights I can't sleep. There's not a lot of jobs where you go home and you worry about your employees overnight and you worry about your community. Or I know that my guys and gals are working on, they're hitting a warrant at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. with the FBI. And I pray to God that the house they're hitting, that the bad guys just surrender and there's no problems. That when my phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning and I see it's my deputy, my heart sinks first, because he ain't calling me to say good morning. He's not calling me to say, hey, somebody just saved a life. He's calling me because it's bad, at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you're not going back to sleep after that. So there's a lot of wear and tear. I wear it on my sleeve. The men and women that work here are dedicated. We answered that question about 15 minutes ago. We talked about that. And we're going to continue to do the job no matter what. We're going to continue to push on. But there are avenues to move funding sources. I will say that some people might not agree with me, but we do have to put funding into social service. There's no doubt about it. But there's other places we can take that no one's going to miss.
All right, so I know we're way over. I just want to touch on, I know you gave some of the statistics and on different arrests and kind of the information of people coming from out of the township, but someone noted that 19053 zip code is also Bensalem.
Yeah.
And that is outside of the 19020, but do you have any statistics on how that kind of plays into it all?
No, and I said 19020 as just to not say 19020 and 19053.
Yeah, the YWCA is in the 19053.
That's right.
Over here.
That's right. Tell them, Jess.
So that's the Bensalem. I had her run Bensalem. I say because I don't know what percentage, 80% of Bensalem is 19020, something like that. I don't know, but.
So the statistics that you were saying include 19053?
Yes, it includes that. My bad.
No, that's okay. I think we just
I
wanted,
just tried to make my sentence shorter.
wanted some clarification. Okay, I think we covered all the questions. And I want to thank you for being on here. And G, I'll let you kind of go ahead and close it out.
Yeah. So thank you to all, and just echo what Jess said, thank you to all the listeners that participate. Fred, as you see, they ask really good questions. The listening public is engaged and informed, and we value that. I was excited about this whole conversation with you because I felt like it provides an opportunity for us to discuss some important issues. I went into our meetings and our conversations knowing that the work that you and cops do all around the country is a difficult job. I also know that we want to be instruments to help build better relationships between police officers, law enforcement, and communities of color. And I think conversations like this is a good first step in that direction. There's a lot of work still to be done. So as we close, I want to give you the last word and just say, I'll ask you this: are you optimistic? Are you hopeful that this time next year, the relationship between law enforcement, Bensalem law enforcement, and communities of color and Bucks will be stronger? It will be more healthy. It will elevate to being something that we could emulate and duplicate around the country, maybe. What are your thoughts on that?
I think this time next year, we're going to be doing more stuff to take that law enforcement role and put it more into that social service, because there are so many incidences where it's not really a police function, but we're the only game in town. And we have to bring everybody back to the table. And we have to make sure that the social service agencies, they're on a 911 response. And I mean, what I mean by 911, a quick response. Because if you're suffering from opioid addiction, you don't have a day to think about it. If you say, I want help now, you got about a 2-minute window to get into help before you put that needle back in your arm. So that has to be a quick response like police. When you're suffering from mental health, it can't be, I have an appointment tomorrow. You need to get that person help today, because I can't even imagine to have your mind, not being rational and having mental health issues. And the fact is, I can have problems tomorrow. I could be an addict tomorrow, and I want to make sure that there is help today. So I think you're going to see that with law enforcement. You're going to see that change. I think we need to keep the discussion going. Congressman Fitzpatrick, it's law enforcement only, and the district attorney tonight, we have a meeting with him to talk about a lot of these issues, and we got to keep that going. Matt Weintraub is constantly keeping that going. You've got a lot of great partners out there. I saw Ron Davis was on. You've got Ron Davis who steps up every time you need something. This man doesn't say no. You've got the Y, you've got Nova, you've got Woman's Place, you've got drugs and alcohol, you've got Lenape Valley. Bucks County is got the foundation. You've got 3 great commissioners. You've got a foundation here that's gonna be able to do it. I will tell you, I think it's important that everybody knows no one gets more upset and hates bad cops more than good cops. When I watch that 9 minutes, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Because I know what, I can't say I know, I'm a white male, but I can only imagine what people must have been thinking, from what we saw that day. And it's not acceptable. And I don't know what, somebody's thinking, policy, not policy, is it his policy, all kinds of stuff's going to come out over the next year, one way or the other. But who puts a knee on someone's neck for 9 minutes? I don't get it. Me as a human being, I just don't get it. So I'm hoping that we get better. There was a comment about change in leadership. I think if you're not willing to change, if you're like, well, I'm going to do it the way we did it in 1987, then it's time to go, because times are changing. You got to change. Every day is fluid here in law enforcement, and you have to be willing to change, and you have to be going back to the 1800s, where we are the community and the community is us, and we work for you. You don't work for us. We work for you, and we provide a service, and the service is generally, your feeling of safety and security, and providing all the help that we can to the person in need, whatever that might be. And if we can't provide it, we at least got to put you in the right direction. And that's the function of law enforcement in 2020. And it's not going to go away in 2025. It's not going to go away. It's only going to get more and more involved and more complicated as technology. You know, we're going to be doing soon in Bucks County. We're already doing it. We're going to be doing it remotely, telemedicine. We're going to be doing you know, we're starting to roll out some teleprograms, if you will, here in Bensalem. We're going to try some things. I don't want to share too much right now because it's all going to be a trial. But this other program we talked about with social services is going to happen in Bucks County. We're not talking about a couple of years. We're talking about a couple of months. This is going to happen in Bucks County. We're going to do this. We're going to make it happen because it's the right thing to do, and people need it because the world is getting more complicated. It's not getting easier.
I want to just say again, thank you, Fred, for that. Thank you for the information you provided today. Thank you for the conversations that we had leading up to this in terms of just talking about some of the issues. And one of the things that came across to me and Jess is that you do have your door is open, and you want to have these dialogues and you want to connect with folks. So I think that that's important. And I think that that's going to be a catalyst for significant change. So I'm excited about that. And of course, the YW wants to be a part of it. Of course, the other nonprofits, you know, and Bucks are great and want to be a part of making Bucks the best it can be. So thank you once again. Yes, and we will see you soon. We'll see the ice cream truck. We'll see you soon.
So can I share this? I see Ms. Sharp is still on.
Yeah.
So you want to guess what this is? G, you want to? I just changed my profile. That's my DNA profile.
Is that your DNA?
That's my DNA profile right there.
You have it up.
Yeah, there's nothing to hide. That's my DNA profile.
Oh my gosh. That was quick. See, you had a trick at the end. I knew that. I knew he was going to pull something out of the...
I would have put ice cream out there.
We're all coming when the truck is out. We're all coming for that.
I'm coming to you. I'm bringing it. And you know
right.
what I said? When COVID is whatever, when we get a vaccine, I invite the Y in here. We'll have an open house and have lunch or dinner, whatever you want.
That's right.
And we're going to show you everything. We're going to show you how the sausage is made, so to speak.
There you go. We're looking forward to that. We want to be a part of that for sure. Thank you so much, Fred.
All right, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.